Australia Overnight, the Sunday morning edition with Pat Panetta. Great to have your company and taking your calls on 131873. Now, the ability to have a uncomfortable conversation in your life and in your workplace is a powerful one. High-performing teams and companies have uncomfortable conversations quickly and openly, but many of us are afraid to speak up due to fear of retribution and also damaging relationships. So can we create a culture where it's encouraged and accepted for people to speak up when they feel like they want to? Now, to tell us more, on the line is Craig Johns. He's a workplace relations and leadership expert, and he joins us on Australia Overnight. G'day, Craig.
Hi, Pat. Good to be on.
Yeah, good to have you on. Now, just off air, we had a conversation, and you reminded me just through our chat that I recently had to have an uncomfortable conversation. So, that's in my mind now. Probably one for off air, but it is a good reference point for me because it is hard, isn't it, to have those tough conversations, and many of us avoid it.
Oh, we certainly do. In most cases, people want to look after the relationship and make sure that they keep that nice and smooth. So they tend to kind of avoid the conversations that need to be had because, as you say, it's either a fear of losing the relationship, maybe affecting their job, their career opportunities, maybe even losing a client. So we quite often will hold back. And in the end, it actually creates more trouble by holding on and keeping it and maybe not sharing it, because then we start to build up tension in ourselves, or maybe there's something unresolved with the other person that we need to have the conversation.
Yes.
And so we don't want it to fester.
Right. So that's the base of it, that it festers and it sort of gets pushed to the background and it just it's not taken head on. My case, I feel it's a bit unfair now to mention something and not sort of give a bit more, was sort of losing a client. It was basically, work. I'm a freelance person who bounces around different sort of media outlets, and I had to sort of say no to one and yes to the other. So my nervousness there was, losing a client, losing a relationship, that they'll go away and say, that guy let us down. But is the other side of the coin, Craig, if I didn't have the difficult conversation, they're going to say, he didn't even bother to ring me, he just sent me a text, or he's weak. So to take it head on at least shows some integrity.
Yeah, 100%. The responsibility and integrity to share when there might be a conflict of interest, and to make sure that people are aware of exactly what happens. Because in our minds, we make meaning of something. So something happens, and we make up our own meaning of it. So we start to build our own sense of truth in a way. And so if for instance, you didn't share it or you just sent it by text, then they might put other context around it.
Yes.
And make up a meaning, which for them might be, well, they're not responsible for us, they're not reliable, or, they're choosing someone over us, but not really letting us know what is happening here. So it's all about trust.
Yes. So if you have that difficult conversation, you're minimising the chance that they'll make up something here. They attach a reason to it. I find that even if you have sort of a direct conversation, people can take their own interpretation just for that. But at least you're trying to mitigate or minimise the chance of them putting another story around it and building something in their mind.
The biggest thing that a lot of people do is they don't understand how to separate the problem from the person or the situation from the person. And they end up making it a little bit personal.
Well, you've hit the key there, or the nub of it there, not making it personal. So this intro that I said about, building a culture where we can talk up, if we all expected that it wasn't personal and it was just their opinion and we moved on, we'd achieve more with our workplace and our friends and family.
If we're talking about maybe a situation where you feel unsafe or unsure about something, or you feel uncomfortable, maybe you have a different perspective, how do you speak up in those situations and making sure that you're able to share it? You're talking about that uncomfortable conversation, whether that is, I've got uncomfortable news I need to share with the other person so I feel comfortable, or it is you're uncomfortable about what that person's behavior or something that's happened or something that's said. And so we need to be able to have permission to both for ourselves, but also in that relationship, do we have the permission to share what we're about to share? And, sometimes it's not worth actually bringing up in a conversation for certain things. Obviously, what you're talking about there, where you're having to share news around, well, look, I don't want a conflict of interest here. I've decided to go with this stakeholder, and right now, unfortunately, I'm unable to support you at this moment. So that's a little bit different to say maybe the uncomfortable news of I've seen or heard something, or I've noticed something that's happening and I feel uncomfortable about that behavior that's going on. And so in that situation, you need to really think about, if you're going to share with that person about something you're uncomfortable with, understand, why is it important? Why is this thing that you want to share important to you? Maybe prepare a little bit in advance. Think about the timing. Is it the right timing? Are they rushing from one meeting to another? Has something just happened in their life? Is there a big celebration going on? Is that the right space to actually have the conversation? So it's important to understand that from an individual permission first,
interesting.
and then really take a pause and breathe first before you may even share, have that courageous conversation. Really go, okay, let it sit. Does this mean something? Is it life or death? Is it going to hold me back, or is it going to hold the relationship back? Should I be sharing in this situation?
Okay. Craig Johns is a workplace relations and leadership expert on Australia Overnight, the Sunday morning edition, talking about why uncomfortable conversations matter. Craig, so it sounds like there's a lot to think about, and you're right about the timing and getting it right. Am I talking to the right person? So it's okay to come to the conclusion that maybe I shouldn't have this uncomfortable conversation once you evaluate all those points in your mind?
Yeah, I think you first need to look at, decide for yourself, take that space, make sure, is this appropriate? Is it really that important? And then if it's not that important, at least you have gone through that process to go, you know what? It's not that important. It's not life or death. It's really not going to affect me or the culture of the organization. I can put it to the side. But if you feel it's going to affect the team culture, you feel it's going to affect your ability to perform or to continue that relationship, then it's important to then go, okay, I do want to share this, but then look at, is this the right timing? Is this the right person? Do I need to go through maybe another channel? And make sure that you're ready for that conversation.
131873 is our number if you want to sort of join the conversation about uncomfortable conversations. 131873. Another thing also, Craig, is that it's so easy now to hide behind platforms and text and email and not take it head on. Ghosting people. They do the thing where you just ghost somebody. Yeah. And I reckon and we all have the temptation to do it, but if you keep avoiding what is, it's not good for you. And I had the other thought too. So, Craig, there's about 300 questions in this. Lots of our listeners, we're talking about the workplace, but all this applies to, your family and friends and relationships on a normal level as well. Yeah, Craig?
Yeah, whether you're at home with the family, whether it's with your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever it may be. You talked about ghosting before. I mean, I hear of a lot of instances now where someone may finish a relationship or even a marriage through a text message or not even saying anything. And I'm like, wow, what happened? So what does it actually mean to be a human nowadays?
Yeah. You got to take things head on. You always feel better afterwards. Is that the word better? At least you've cleared the air. I don't know if you feel better, but you've cleared the air and things are clearer maybe.
You've now had your opportunity. Obviously, it may not always be in your hands what the response is, but at least you're being responsible and going, hey, this is what I feel in this moment. I want to share this, and it's important for me to share this. Either can we solve this? If not, here's a suggestion for you. But at least you've had that chance to relieve yourself from all that stress and pressure that's building up inside of you because you're holding on to something. And in most cases, if it feels uncomfortable, it must mean something to you, but it's just understanding what that is. It's important we try to create cultures where people do feel safe speaking up. If we look back into maybe a couple of generations ago, it was a lot of families were in more of a command and control type thing. It was hierarchy based, and you don't speak up if you're out of turn, so to speak, in a way. But we need to provide that safety where it's safe for people to speak up as leaders. We don't react straight away. We give them the space. Maybe we ask more questions to try and understand. We thank them for their feedback rather than trying to turn it into a combative competition, so to speak. So we need to make sure that we we are open, we're able to deliver that.
You know, it's up to the leaders, as you say, to welcome the feedback. Don't take it personal. You remind me also of another meeting I was in. I was so, you know, it was a girl that I worked with, or a colleague. She was just so impressive. You know, she was so good. Loved working with her, and you know, even more so when I was in a meeting. There was a guy there. He was okay, but he was saying sort of sexist type things. He was sort of, I don't know. I don't know. I was going to say from a different culture. Anyway, I won't go down that road, but he was just saying things that weren't appropriate. And she didn't get upset, but she just said, look, you know, that's not on, or she just pointed it out and straightened things up in such a nice way. You know, that's the sort of culture we need to create, just to say it. And, you know, he was cool with it, she was cool with it, and we got on with the job at hand.
Look, you know, when we're thinking about cultures as well, so there's that safety first. So we want safety for people to speak up, but we also need to create invitations. So we need to make sure that if we notice that someone maybe is sitting back, they're not saying anything, they're not contributing, they might just be there absorbing, they might be a little bit more introvert maybe. Yeah. We need to make sure we invite and use people's names to go, hey, what do you think, George or Sarah? What's your position on this? Because sometimes we may have a different perspective.
Now, when we're in those uncomfortable conversations, Craig, how do we actually start the conversation?
That's a really good question, because a lot of people struggle with this. They sit back, and I've been in those situations as well, and still do sometimes, where you're going, how am I going to share this uncomfortable news? Or how am I going to raise my hand and speak up in this meeting? And so the first thing that needs to happen is a slight interruption. So it might be, you know, and it depends on what your culture is like or what is usual. It might be putting up the hand, or it might be just leaning forward or whatever that may be and saying, look, excuse me, I just want something I'd like to share. And so just giving that opportunity for them to go, yep, that's okay. Then the first thing you do after that is pause and set a really serious tone. So pausing, people will kind of stand up and they will connect with you a little bit. If you try and rush straight in, they don't get that chance to feel the gravity of what you're about to share. And you want to introduce the subject. So introduce what you want to share, what you're uncomfortable about, or maybe you're unsure about, or your different perspective, and do it in a really short sentence. So pause, introduce the subject, then in 1 to 2 sentences state what the issue is or what the suggestion is. Then pause again and give people time to absorb. You've got to imagine you're not just a monologue here. You're not just going to share all your information. Mm-hmm. You actually need to create a conversation. So you pause, give them time to absorb. And then if required, if it feels like it needs a bit more, then you provide more detail or response. But always try and leave it in a way where you give people opportunity to be able to respond to it. So you want to deliver it in a way that is not an attack. It's not reactive. It's in a responsible way. We're going, look, this is my observations. This is what I'm seeing. How can we work through this? Or what is the next step we can take to address this? And so giving them the chance then to respond in a respectful way is really, really important.
Craig, thank you for your time. So uncomfortable conversations matter. Do you agree? 131873. Craig Johns, a workplace relations and leadership expert. Thanks for being on Australia Overnight.
You're welcome, Pat. Thank you.